Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming and attending our event today. My name is Simran, and I am with Canopy. Canopy is a co-working space based in San Francisco. And today's talk is going to be a discussion on energy practices for mind and body healing. And we have Dr. Holly Schonberger and Lindsay Mann who are speaking today. So I'm going to let the two of you take it from here. But one thing quickly, we'll open this up to Q&A at the end of the talk. And if you have any questions, you can type in the chat box, or you can digitally raise your hand and I'll put the instructions in the chat box. All right, Holly and Lindsay, all you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. So glad you're joining us. We've had a lot of fun putting this together.
Yeah.
And I think we feel that like both angles are so profound, like the mind, body, and soul, mind, body, soul connection energetically. And it's just, yeah, this is really exciting for us to get together and chat with you.
Yes, I feel very excited. Also, I think Lindsay and I have a lot of really cool information to share with you guys today. And we want to keep this interactive. You know, we don't want to just sit here and talk at you for an hour. So please feel free to ask questions or be inquisitive or whatever the case may be. We're definitely trying to keep this more of a dialogue than a lecture. Where should we begin?
I think just share your background and what
Sure.
specialty is, and then I'll share mine, and then we'll.
Awesome. Yeah, cool. So I am a NetworkSpinal Chiropractor. And NetworkSpinal is a certain technique that focuses on the brain and the spinal cord, which is essentially what chiropractic does, ensuring the anatomical alignment of the brain and the spinal cord so that the brain and the spinal cord can communicate optimally and essentially help the body to function optimally. The lens through which I practice chiropractic is the technique of NetworkSpinal, and it's more energetically based. It's a very gentle technique, and there's no like popping or cracking, if you will. A lot of the contacts that we make are very light and gentle, and it's more of a communication with the energetic field of someone versus actually going in and adjusting bones. A lot of the purpose of the work has to do with really helping not only the anatomical alignment of your spinal cord, but also helping the body to integrate and release tension and stored trauma and stress. As obviously it's becoming more and more known in the Western world that we experience physical pain, or our mental or emotional stressors can be compartmentalized and then turned into physical pain. This technique really helps to kind of narrow in on the stressors and maybe the mental or emotional traumas you've experienced in your life, and helping to integrate those things so that you have less physical pain. It's just a different way of looking at the body in comparison to traditional chiropractic, and it really spoke to me from multiple standpoints. But I did my undergrad in psychology, and I really wanted to find a way to integrate the mind-body experience of what it means to be a human, and this technique has really allowed me to do that. I'm excited to share it with you guys.
Such good stuff.
Yes.
And so I'm Lindsay Mann. I am a Reiki master and an Akashic Records consultant, and I work with energy too. And my energy work tends to be from like the 5D realm and the 3D realm. So anyway, beyond Reiki, the Akashic Records, so this is what we're focusing on today. The Akashic Records are the vibrational archives of every soul's journey throughout all its incarnations. It's also been called the electromagnetic imprint of everything that's ever happened. So when I'm giving an Akashic Records reading, I'm channeling this very high vibrational, refined energy, and I'm receiving messages and experiences to share with the person who's sitting in front of me. So, you know, to go from talking about this very like practical, down-to-earth technique, and then this very like huge, expansive, universal experience of healing and higher guidance, it's just so cool to bring them together. And you know, part of the reason why I'm so excited about this is that, you know, spending so much time channeling, working with energy, with Reiki, and working with the Akashic records, I can feel and spend a lot of time up in here and like not so much in my body. So the body aspect is like really important, and having the two together. Now with the Akashic records, a lot of the information coming through is from experiences from past lives. So the information is all your past lives, everything going on in your current life, and all future possibilities. And when we're talking about future possibilities, the future is not set in stone. We have free will. The information that's coming through, regardless of past life, present life, future possibilities, it's always for the highest good of you and everyone connected to you. And you're never going to hear anything that you're not ready to hear. But for example, questions you might ask, you know, if you have experienced something extremely challenging or have had trauma in your life, and you can't get past some of the emotions, you feel stuck, or maybe you don't even know how it's affecting you. You start asking questions and picking it apart, and I'm getting this information from this very, very high perspective that creates a release or relief. It alleviates the experience and gives a different perspective so that you can move on and you can move forward from a place of empowerment. And the perspective is the perspective of the soul. So I like to think of the Akashic records as a picture is worth 1,000 words. So as I'm getting visuals, as I'm getting answers to the questions that are being asked from whoever's sitting in front of me, I'm sharing something, and it resonates on a very deep subconscious, unconscious, and soul level. Sometimes I'll experience the actual emotions. Sometimes I'll feel physical sensations. It's just this very deep energetic connection to whoever I'm reading. And the information is not coming from my consciousness. A lot of times I'll see things that I would never, ever think of, because it's not for me, it's for the person in front of me. So yeah, that's the Akashic records. And you can ask questions about literally everything and anything, like deep existential questions, or, you know, questions about transitions in life, things like that. So if you're, you know, curious or stuck or whatever, and you just have these pressing questions and you want answers, it's like confiding in the Akashic records to give you some answers. And, you know, what Holly and I were working on, you know, to put this together was really interesting. So, you know, she was sharing her practice and how it works. And then we opened the records and kind of went to see like, okay, well, what's the records take on what she's saying? So it's really helpful. It's really beautiful. And we're excited to share with you things you can do at home, you know, to like right now, to take care of yourself from mind body perspective.
Yes. It's a very interesting time to be a human right now, especially in regards to the concept of like working or like energy clearing at home, right? Because now your home is your work and your work is your home, and there's a lot of overlap there, where in comparison, when this was previously supposed to be a physical event, you know, it was like going to be at Canopy, and then people could take that information and like go to their work, and now it's like, okay, the whole script has changed, right? So yeah, do you want to just jump into the things we talked about as far as like the compartmentalizing and things like that?
Jump into, yeah, some of the techniques. Yeah.
Cool. So one of the things that I talk about a lot in my work is energetic field or energetic space. And 95% of our universe is non-physical matter. So the majority of things happening in you and around you are things that you can't see, and potentially things that you could perceive, but also potentially not. There's so much happening around us all the time in the concept of energy. And what a lot of people don't know is every human has a 5-foot, if you will, like energetic field that comes off of them. So anytime you and another person are within 5 feet of each other, your 5 feet of energy and that person's 5 feet of energy are intermingling and experiencing and communicating, which is, you know, if you're an empath or someone who can feel very deeply, it's very easy for you to to feel these things or to take on other people's energy, et cetera, et cetera. And knowing that, one really important thing that Lindsay and I talked about was making sure that people are empowered and understand the importance behind having separate spaces in your home right now for like where you work, where you meditate, where you sleep, where you watch TV, where you're on your computer, and in a way really compartmentalizing where you're doing those things. The reason for this is, you know, if you're doing your work in your bed and your brain understands your bed as the place where you're supposed to sleep, but then all of a sudden you're bringing all of your work energy and your work mindset to your bed, your brain and your bed start getting very confused about the purpose of what your bed is supposed to be for you in your life. And this is something I learned about in undergrad when I was getting my psych degree, and just the psychology behind your subconscious understanding what certain parts of your home and work environment are for, right? So a big thing I learned about in undergrad was like, you want to try and study in the same places, because then when you go back to that place where you studied before, it's easier for you to recall the information that you previously studied. And so in this specific case where a lot of people are working from home and they're doing everything from home, like my wife is sitting on the couch, watching TV, working, eating, she's doing everything on the couch. And I think that she's struggling to sleep because her body is getting really confused about her energy and what parts of the house does her energy belong to. And so we were like, okay, we're going to buy you a desk. You need a desk where you can work so that when you're at the desk, you know that it's time to work. And when you're on the couch, you know that it's time to rest. Otherwise, you know, again, those energetic messages that your brain's receiving and that your body's receiving are extremely crosshaired, essentially. So the first thing is making sure you're compartmentalizing and sussing out space in your home where this is where I meditate, this is where I do yoga, this space is where I work, this space is where I cook, this space is where I recuperate. And the most important one, in my opinion, is the rest and recuperate space has to be different from your like productivity space. Again, with the example of like working in bed, it's just going to make it really, really tough for your brain and your body to understand like, what is my responsibility when I'm in this space? And then also kind of setting like an energetic field for that space. Like when you're in your meditative yoga workout space, like really setting the vibe there that, you know, this space is for XYZ, so that when you enter that space, you can feel that, right? Like you can feel yourself being present, experiencing what that space is meant to be. And when you go into your productive space, it's like, okay, like I'm like my energy, everything about me right now is like on this plane of being productive. And so, yeah, I would say that that's probably the one of like starting point, like step one is like looking through your home and sussing out, you know, what are each of these individual spaces for, and how can I create boundaries and barriers for them to make sure that I'm honoring them appropriately, so that when I'm in each of those spaces, I'm fully present doing that thing that I want to do there.
And, you know, I just want to add that I like when she mentioned this to me, the compartmentalizing, I put it into action right away, and I tested it in my own space. Like currently I'm living with a roommate. And so I'm in like mostly my one room. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to work in my room, and that's not ideal for me. I like to have my bedroom just for sleeping, just for relaxing, very, you know, very peaceful like that. But, you know, our worlds are smaller. You know, we're not going to work. Like working is at home. And what if your world is just your room? Because maybe you want space from your roommate or, you know, your spouse or your kids. And so you have to really consolidate and work with it. And we adapt really well. So at a point I was working from bed, and I did notice that I had all this tension in my body when I woke up in the morning. And then once we had this discussion, and then I was like, all right, compartmentalize. You're going to set up your room differently. So I moved some things around. I moved my work and my computer is like on the other side of the room. So there's like enough of a space, and you can make it work with reduced spaces. And that's really what we're dealing with right now. So however it is, just try it out and see how you feel different. Ideally, I'd like to be doing my work in another room, but you know, it is what it is, and it works. It works. You got muted. You got muted.
I'm so bad at this. um, do we have any questions so far, or does anyone want to ask any questions or say anything? Sorry, what'd you say?
Or we just dive in with some tricks. We have all these fun little tips.
Yeah.
Yeah, if
Okay.
anyone has any questions, I put the instructions in the chat box as to how
Right. Okay.
to hand.
Cool. Awesome. Okay.
So do you want to talk about AAA or
yeah, let's jump into that. Cool. So in the technique that I practice, one of the major concepts or philosophies that we talk about is this concept called AAA, and it stands for aware, acknowledge, and accept. There is a lot of rebirth happening right now on our planet. Our planet itself is rebirthing and healing. There's a lot of personal rebirth happening right now. And I think this is a really, really vital time where the earth has kind of essentially paused, right? And has asked a lot of us to pause in what we're doing in order to reflect. And this concept I like can't believe how ironic it is when it comes to kind of the current nature of everything that's happening on the planet. And I just finished doing, or I'm just about done doing like an IG live, like 9-day rebirth series. And a lot of it has to do with this concept of AAA, where going through the steps of aware, acknowledge, accept can be really, really powerful in this time. You know, if there are certain behaviors or thought patterns or activities that you're participating in, whatever it may be, that becoming aware of those things and being in a time where we can choose what is us still, what is no longer us, you know, what thought patterns am I participating in, what behaviors am I participating in, what relationships am I participating in, you know, becoming aware of all of those things, and then taking inventory essentially and being able to decide, you know, is this thing still a part of who I am or a part of who I want to be after things go back to normal? You know, is this behavior something that I still want to participate in? You know, is it still me? I've been hanging on to X, Y, and Z for the last 8 years. Like, am I ready to let go of it now? You know, just really becoming aware of our environment, becoming aware of ourselves, becoming aware of the things that we say to ourselves, becoming aware of the things that we are subconsciously like autopilot doing. You know, this is a really great time to kind of suss those things out and get really intentional about just our awareness around them, and like, why am I doing that? Why am I saying this? You know, why am I still participating in this relationship that's been, or friendship, whatever the case may be, that's been driving me crazy for however long, right? Our decisions, or our willingness to become aware of all of those things that we're participating in, is so profoundly powerful. And then on top of that, being able to acknowledge them for what they are. You know, am I doing this as a coping mechanism? And am I doing this because it's something that I want to actively do? Like, this is important to me. Am I doing this because of conditioning that happened to me when I was 8 years old that I've just been carrying on for the last several years? And providing space for yourself to actually acknowledge that without judgment, and just allowing things to be, you know, they don't have to be good or bad. They can just be the way that they are, and acknowledging those things for what they are. And then on top of that acknowledgement, accepting them. You know, I either accept this thing as part of me, or I don't accept this thing as part of me. And due to this pause, there's just like so much less crap or so much less stuff in the way right now, that's really allowing space for AAA to happen. And, you know, people are doing it in their own ways, on their own timelines, which is how it should be done. And, you know, it's not necessarily called like AAA for everyone. Like, it could, you know, it could be called anything. But for me, it's easiest to look at it that way, because when something really hard is happening for me in my life, like even during this period of time where like every hour I feel like my emotions are changing, I'm constantly going through AAA. I'm constantly asking myself, okay, what am I aware of right now as far as how I'm feeling about this? What am I acknowledging about it? And then what am I choosing to accept about it? And it makes decision making during this time a lot easier, and it makes things a lot less heavier. I feel like right now things are so heavy, especially for people who are working from home and they have kids and their kids are at home, and people are basically just like being weighed down right now with all of that on top of like the unknown of what's going to happen over the next, a handful of months. And using AAA can really help to just like slow things down for a minute. And instead of standing in front of the one tree, right, it helps to bring back the whole perspective of the forest and allow you to really notice what you notice and feel how you feel about a situation instead of like jumping into action. And provide like a framework of stillness to just be like, okay, I'm going to AAA this real quick, and just let myself really like sink or dive into how I'm truly feeling. Like I said, I've been doing this probably daily for the last month, just helping myself become more aware of my habits and my thought patterns and my behaviors and the way I speak to myself and the way I speak to my wife. And, every day that I'm in my space, what am I saying about my space? My space has been really dirty for the last 2 weeks. I'm really over that. Okay, maybe I should do something about it then. Small things like that, because the small things build up, and then the small things turn into big things, or the small decisions that you make over time turn into our ability to make much bigger decisions that feel authentic and congruent.
It's so interesting because, this goes to just how complementary this is. It's not even funny. So, as you're talking about like, feeling these ways and how it could be coming from experiences in this life. Some of the stuff that we're feeling right now is so intense and so heavy because it's actually built up from also past lives. So we're being so triggered and traumatized from like times we've been at war, times that we've been in past lives, times that we've experienced like the plague, times that we've been in confinement or jailed or enslaved, times that we've had threats of like not having food. And so it hits that, and it also goes so much deeper. So like, for example, like a month ago, I had this pain in my chest, and it felt like my chest, the bones had to crack. And I'm sure that there would be a perspective from Holly on like what that is and how we can move it around. And I was working with a friend that I do Akashic Records trades with. And it was like, okay, it's grief from a past life. And we went into it. It was this very violent experience from a past life. And then it realized that it was like from multiple past lives. And we just had this really profound reading where it alleviated. It's like once you know where something comes from, once you have the awareness, and that the awareness can take you so far, once you get to that point, you can release it, you can find peace with it, you can send healing and everything to it. And it's interesting because Holly's mentioning pause, right? Pause. And when I asked, like, so with the Akashic Records and what we're sharing today, I went and I asked questions about the energetic field and how we can self-heal. I asked, what are the secrets to health and wellness? And one of the what are secrets to health and wellness, exactly what Holly said. Pause, listening, waiting, breathing, feeling, crying, exercise. This next one is controversial. No alcohol. Healthy sex, good food, real food, and nurturing light food. And I guarantee when I say those things to you, you're like, oh, we know, like we know these things. But it's interesting. It's like whenever we're sharing like our practices and our training, our education, they're really overlapping right now. Like so many of these modalities are overlapping, and we're saying a lot of the same things. But as soon as you said pause, I thought that was so interesting because that was literally the first answer to one of the questions of like, what are the secrets to health and wellness? So yeah, I really appreciate that.
So interesting.
Yeah. Are there any like little kind of at home tips that you want to share of like what things people can do at home for themselves?
Yeah. So we can talk about SRI and then maybe a little bit of box breathing. So one thing that we as chiropractors focus on quite heavily is the difference between the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight nervous system that is innately within you, that you're born with, and it's there for times of emergency. Like if you were in the woods and you saw a tiger or a bear and you needed to run, when your fight or flight nervous system kicks on, your blood goes to all your extremities, your frontal lobe and higher end cognitive thinking shut off, because when you're running from a bear, you don't need to remember how to do math. Your cortisol, your stress hormone, spikes up because that leads to adrenaline, and your eyes dilate so that you can see better in your periphery. And yeah, so you can run, right? Like at that point, it's like do or die, right? Like I need to be able to run. And this so the flip side to that is the parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and digest and recuperate. It essentially is the time, you know, like when we're sleeping, it allows us to literally rest and recuperate from stressors from the day, physical stressors, mental stressors, emotional stressors, whatever the case may be. And then the ability to digest food, we have to be in a parasympathetic state in order to properly digest food. And right now in our, maybe not like right now in this moment, but generally speaking, with the cultures and the societies that we have, things are so busy all the time that people are just chronically in a sympathetic state. So they're chronically dumping cortisol, which when cortisol is chronically being emitted into this system, it can end up being very detrimental, and it can like harm your organs. And yeah, it's excess cortisol is not a good thing. Some cortisol is, but being in a dominant sympathetic state all the time can lead to heightened anxiety, heightened stress, a lot of things that people experience who commute a lot or their work is really stressful and they're a lot of times feeling like they're constantly on edge. They might have brain fog. They might not be able to digest their food well. So they might be wondering, you know, like, why does my stomach hurt all the time? Why am I partially digesting food? Or like their bowels might not be great. Their stomach might hurt a lot when they eat. You know, there's like a whole slew of things. And it's simply because they're trying to eat when they're not in a parasympathetic state, or they're trying to sleep when their body is still like wired to be running away from a bear. So it's like, you can imagine how hard it would be to try and sleep if your body is wanting to run as quickly as possible in some other direction, right? So I just wanted to give a little bit of context. But if you're one of those people, which would be very common right now, where you're feeling very stressed out, very anxious about the unknown or just about your current situation, there's two things you can do at home that are really helpful for that, to help get you into a parasympathetic state. And you'll know when you've entered that state because you'll hear your stomach start growling. If like out of nowhere, your stomach just starts grumbling and you're like, where's this coming from? You know, like, why is this happening? It's because your body's entering a state where your stomach is able to excrete gastric juices to actually be able to digest your food. So a lot of times when people come in here for their new patient exams, as soon as we get our hands on their neck and they start to relax, because your parasympathetic nerves live in your neck and your pelvis, around your sacrum. As soon as we start touching those parts of people's bodies, like their stomachs start gurgling really loud and they're like, oh, I'm not really hungry. Why is that happening? And so we have to explain this to them. But so yeah, you might hear your stomach start gurgling. You might get really sleepy because your body's like, oh my God, thank you. I need to sleep right now. So you might like fall asleep on the floor. Both of those things are totally common. The first thing is called SRI. It stands for somatorespiratory integration. You don't have to know what that is. Donald Epstein is the founder of NetworkSpinal, and he also created somatorespiratory integration. SRI is not technically a chiropractic technique, but he uses it in conjunction with the technique that he created because it's extremely powerful when it's paired with the technique. And one really small exercise you can do is lay on the ground and you take your hands over your face and you kind of scan down your body and find a place of your body that feels really peaceful and really at ease, and put a hand over top of it and just breathe into that area. Breathe into that area and notice what it feels like in your body to feel that emotion. So if it's joy, right? I feel really joyous right here. I feel really happy right here. really sit with yourself and allow yourself to feel what joy actually feels like. And you can say out loud, like, sometimes I feel really happy right here, and sometimes it feels like this, and sometimes it feels like this. And just encouraging your mind to tell your body that it's okay for you to feel that emotion. And then once you've completed that, you can take your hands and scan again and find an area that doesn't feel so great or might feel disconnected, and put a hand on that area of the body and say out loud, sometimes I feel really disconnected right here. Sometimes I feel really scared right here. Sometimes I feel really hurt right here, whatever that emotion might feel to you in that moment. And then allow yourself to really feel that too, right? Because we're humans and we're paradoxical, and, we're not always black or white. Like, we can be sad and happy at the same time. Like, that is what it means to be a human. So once you've found that not so great area and you've given it some acknowledgement verbally, you're going to take both of your hands and put one on the area that felt great, one on the area that might feel disconnected, or whatever the case may be, and just breathe into those areas together and simultaneously say out loud, I am these things and they both are all me, and that's okay. You might start crying. You might feel like a heat release, like a heat exiting your body, kind of like Lindsay was talking about, where there's like an integration or a release of the emotion, or a release of an experience, or it just might be energy that's been pent up and you have no idea where it's coming from, and it doesn't matter. You don't really need to, but just acknowledging it and allowing it to know that you see it, and that it's there. A lot of times just doing something as simple as that can allow certain emotions or past experiences or energy to leave the body. Sometimes all it wants is to just be acknowledged. So doing it separately, first, the place that feels really great, acknowledging it out loud. Then secondly, the place that doesn't feel so great, acknowledging it out loud as well. And then acknowledging them out loud together, and recognizing and saying, like, I am both of these things, and that is me, and that is okay. And just allowing yourself to like be in that position for, I know you can't see my second hand, it's kind of down on my stomach, but just allowing yourself to be in that position on the floor for a minute. And this also really helps to connect the mind back to the body, right? Sometimes if you have a vulnerable spot on your body from a past injury, like say you got in a car accident, and 20 years later, it's like every time you feel emotionally stressed out, your low back hurts and you don't really know why. It's very possible that when you got in the car accident, you injured your low back, and now when you come into contact with stressors, those stressors kind of pile up, and they show themselves by kind of like pinging at your low back, like saying, hey, pay attention to me, pay attention to me, pay attention to me. That's essentially what pain is from a very foundational level. It's the body's way of trying to get you to pay attention to something. And so just acknowledging those areas, allowing them to be present, helping your mind connect back to your body. If there's an area that feels like it has a lot of tension, or it's just really tight or stuck, like Lindsay was talking about, you can just put your hand on it and say, sometimes I feel really stuck right here. And just say that out loud 3 times and see what happens. Again, like you might start crying, or, there's really no answer as to what might happen, but just giving acknowledgement to that area. And a lot of times the pain will go away instantly, or you'll feel a release, or you'll feel so much lighter, like you're not carrying as much of a load because you were able to actually acknowledge that load, and now it can be free. It's not clinging onto you for dear life. So yeah, that's SRI, that's one. And then box breathing. People don't understand commonly how important breathing is, and how breathing is directly correlated to being in a parasympathetic state. A deep belly breath, where you really feel your diaphragm moving and you're focusing on your breath starting in your belly and not in your chest, can be one of the most relaxing things that you can do for yourself. So in a time of anger, or a time of peril, or like a moment where you're just like so frustrated, just breathing into your belly can be so beneficial to just help you chill for a moment before deciding what the next choice is going to be. Yeah, the breath is directly related to the parasympathetic nervous system. And I just like box breathing, which is breathing in through your nose for 4 seconds, holding for 4 seconds, exhaling through your mouth for 4 seconds, and holding for 4 seconds. You can do it sitting, you can do it lying on the ground, you can do it lying in bed, you can literally do it, and you can do it sitting in your car. Like, there's no rule for where you can do box breathing, but it's something that I do a lot when I'm feeling really disconnected from my body, or if I'm just like, I'm feeling like my head's really cluttered. It can also be a form of meditation to just help me get connected to my body and feel like way more clear and focused about what it is that I need to do instead of feeling extremely cluttered in my head. It will also help you to get in a more calm state because, again, that breathing will encourage a parasympathetic nervous system response.
That really works for you. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, so it's just, this is so fascinating because everything's so complementary. So we didn't get to talk about this, but when everything that I'm about to say about little tips of things you can do at home is extremely complementary to what Holly just said. So when so when asking the Akashic record, so this is just without any prior working and asking about it or anything. I just went right into the records and I started asking about the energetic field and also, how you can take care of those pain points at home. And so, Holly mentioning putting your hand on the spot, like we really need to understand how powerful we are and how listening to ourselves is really where we find our answers. And we really have to trust ourselves and trust our bodies that they're communicating to us and telling us what we need. And part of that deep listening is putting your hands on your body. So this really cool tip that came through with the energetic field. First, when it was showing the energetic field, it was showing like a little like concentric circles, a little circle, a bigger circle, a bigger circle, a bigger circle, bigger circle. And so like, playing with the distance from your body and putting your hand there and even closing your eyes and just kind of like paying attention, like letting go of everything and just kind of, what do you see? What do you feel? What emotions are coming up? What memories are coming up? Things like that. So the tip from the Akashic records on the energetic field, ask what color the pain point is. So when you're finding that pain point, like put your hand on it, get really close to it and like see if a color comes up, and ask, what is the pain? What does it need? And then it says in the center of the pain point, what color as you go out. So as you go out into your energetic field, does the color change? And by getting an idea, so I did this for myself, and the pain point I went in, I didn't get very far before I saw the color red. And that's like root chakra, and that's our sense of security and fear. And isn't that where we all are right now? So I was like, I did it. And I was like, haha, yeah, I know. I know that's where we are. But like inquiring further. And so here's the thing that was interesting about testing your own energetic field and the temperature and where you're at, finding the pain point and seeing what colors as you go out. And ideally, and again, this is not my background, this is just the information that just came through. Ideally, you want to see the fruitful prismatic colors of the rainbow, right? You want to see like from white into all, you want to see that rainbow color as you go out, and maybe think of the chakras. And I thought that was really interesting. And you want to see them in order. So when things are flowing really clearly and everything's really super balanced, that's ideally what you're looking to see. And I guarantee that's probably not where we're at. So and don't judge it. Just look at what it is, and that you can work from that point. So another interesting thing was I asked about like, and to help balance out when you do see that it's not this clear rainbow, focusing on imagining white light and yellow light on the pain point. And the reason that the color of white is, the purity, the cleansing, and then the color of yellow was meant for power. Like, so you're bringing like, the divinity, your higher consciousness, the purity, and you're bringing the power and the confidence of your solar plexus. So when focusing on a pain point, you can focus on it and then start imagining, the colors white and yellow together to help heal that location. So try that. That doesn't come from any prior knowledge, but that came through and I was like, that's really cool. And then when we're talking about cracks, right? So like, why does the body need to crack? So I asked about this because I had my own little thing with my chest, and the information that come through was stuck, super stuck in an area. You're super stuck. There's an emotional stuckness in an area. The pain is stuck and it's solidifying. And I got the word boning. So like it's solidifying to like bone. And so when you have that pain point, inquire questions. Like the pain is screaming at you because it needs you to bring awareness to it. It needs you to do something about it, to acknowledge it at the very least. And that's it. Part of acknowledging it is helping to release it. But even deeper than that is like inquire, ask, who is it? What is it? Okay. You're going to get your answers. But by paying attention to the spot, you get all this information. And then once you get it, you can release it, or you can apologize or forgive or let go. And something really cool was the best case scenario simultaneously is the physical and the spiritual release. That moment, it's released. And so if you're working with Holly and you have the physical aspect of the opportunity to release, and at the same time you're inquiring and asking the question, and your consciousness is also releasing it, that's the full mind body release of that issue or that challenge or that stuck emotional pain. So I thought that was cool.
That's awesome. It's so funny when you brought that up. Just recently, maybe a few months ago, I was seeing my chiropractor who does the technique on me that I do. And I asked her, sometimes like, I'll have moments where I really want to get like my neck cracked or get like a traditional chiropractic adjustment. And, I asked her, I was like, why do I feel like that sometimes? Because there's a lot of times where I don't feel like that. But then sometimes I'm like, I just want someone to just like light me up right now. And I'm like, why is that? Like, where does that come from? And she was like, she essentially looked me in the face and was like, what are you unwilling to feel? Like in that moment when you're wanting to get cracked, like, what are you not paying attention to and what are you not wanting to feel? Because the more that you truly let yourself feel into it, the less you're probably going to want to get cracked. And like, total disclaimer, like, I have tons of friends and close colleagues who do like traditional chiropractic, and they're freaking amazing at it. And I love it. And I think it is completely necessary for our profession. I have a brain injury history, so it's just a lot for me to receive an adjustment like that, which is why I like more like gentle techniques. But I just thought it was so interesting in like exactly what you're saying. It was like, why am I, and it was almost like an aversion tactic. It's like, oh, well, if you crack my neck, then I don't have to think about this really hard thing that's living in my arm that's been there for, however long, right? It's like, I can kind of just like check out and go over here and feel like the endorphins from the adjustment and not have to like be distracted essentially from this thing that I've been choosing to ignore for however long, right? And I was like, oh shit. It was so wild.
Very confronting. It's not easy stuff, it's all the stuff we don't want to look at.
For sure. For sure.
You get so much freedom and so much release from it once it's out. And, I feel like so much of it's like a lot of it now is grief, and anger and rage and fear and everything.
Which are all totally justified during a period of time like this, right? Like, this is a completely unprecedented time that no one alive has ever experienced unless they lived through the 1918 Spanish flu and like 2 world wars, which, like, high five if you're still here. That's freaking awesome, But yeah, it's a completely unprecedented time, and no one, there is no shoulds right now. Like, the word should just be like thrown out the window, because in my opinion, I don't really like the word should anyways, because then that means there's supposed to be an expectation of something. And it's like, well, everything that you are right now and everything you are feeling right now and everything you're experiencing right now is completely valid from the standpoint that no one knows what the hell is going to happen, and no one really knows what's going on, right? Like, there's no like previous evidence that we get to go off of to navigate this situation. And again, like, that's probably one of the most important things during this time, is just allowing yourself to be a human and to feel these things, and regardless of what the outcome of that looks like, and providing space for yourself to be able to do that.
Yeah, really. I
Yeah.
mean, as hard as this is, and how excruciating this is, um, it is really an opportunity to be with yourself, and really get in touch with yourself, and just let yourself feel everything that you're feeling,
Hmm.
and working with it, and leaning on each other for support. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I recently, after graduating chiropractic school, I realized that I wasn't very good at feeling things, because I constantly didn't feel like I had time to feel things during school. It was like, oh, I'm really angry about this. Cool. I have 300 things I have to do right now. I don't really have time to feel it or deal with it or whatever. So I just take it and shove it somewhere in my body. Right. And soon after school, I realized that I had become a bit numb, and I like couldn't like be with myself, and I wasn't like feeling things as deeply as I was used to feeling them. And my same chiropractor lady, who's like, on some other level understanding things, she's brilliant. She was just like, you, in times when you feel like that, you just need to go be by yourself, like in your room or wherever. And if you feel like you want to feel really angry, like scream into your pillow, like allow yourself to emote the actual emotion that you're feeling, so that your body remembers what it feels like to actually feel that feeling, right? If you're like, wow, whatever's happening right now is like really joyous and really happy, but you're not like actually feeling that in your body, getting yourself into a position, or like dancing or like singing or doing something that actually allows you to emote that emotion, will remind you that it's okay to feel that way, and what it's supposed to feel like when that emotion's actually happening. That was super powerful.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel I'm very, very similar. And I think there was always so much judgment around being emotional for me.
Hmm.
I was always very, very judgmental. Just felt like I was a very practical person, but also I felt that if I was sad, if I wanted to cry, I was weak. There was like
Hmm.
all this conditioning around that. And so, it's not easy. It's still, even now, with
Yeah.
everything on. So of course there's going to be this tension of grief like stuck in my chest. If you don't cry,
Hmm.
where's that going to go? You got to cry. And
Yeah.
ideally you want to laugh.
Hmm.
If you can laugh through the hell that we're experiencing, I mean, your brain doesn't know the difference between a fake laugh and a real laugh. And so that's really what it is. If we can cry our eyes out together, and if we can laugh as much as we can through this and just get through it like that, like we're some pretty balanced humans.
Yeah. One thing that's popping into my head right now is this like concept of like energy and emotions and stuff. And the word emotion literally means energy in motion. And for us to be able to move energy that's in our bodies, there's two ways that happens. Physical movement, and like feeling things, right? Like we have to be willing to actually physically move our body so that the energy can move. And then sound, right? So if you're, like say you're doing SRI, you're doing one of these techniques, and you still feel like something's really stuck, whatever that emotion feels to you, if you do something to try and emote what that feels like, so like make a sound, like in our technique a lot, we'll say, I'll touch a point in someone's body that's holding a lot of tension, and I'll be like, okay, I want you to take a deep breath, and on the exhale, I want you to make a sound that feels like what this area feels like to you, right? So if there's a lot of tension and maybe they're feeling angry in that area, on the exhale, they just let out this like massive, like angorous roar to allow that emotion to literally move through their body. And I've done that so many times, and then I end up sobbing, and then I feel so much better afterward. And it's just a nice reminder that, in order for us to know that our like in order for emotions to be validated, like there is an energetic component behind them, and that energy has to be recognized and moved in some way, shape, or form in order for the emotion to be released or for the experience to be truly integrated. And when I realized that, I was like, wow, like there's a reason why, you know, when we get really angry, like we go into a certain posture. When we're sad, we go into a certain posture. And when we're happy, we go into a certain posture, right? Like our bodies, like on a cell level, understand what these emotions are supposed to feel like and how they affect us. Like our bodies are so affected by those things. And so to have some tools to be able to like release those emotions from our body or to be able to fully integrate them is so powerful.
See if there are little tips.
Let's see if we have any, no questions. All right.
Yeah, do we have any questions or comments? We still have about close to 10 minutes left. Does anyone have any tips for what they're doing while they're getting through this period?
That's a good question.
I find just not watching the news and not reading the paper and playing classical music, just really nice classical music all day. And I have stations. I have a puzzle station. I have a craft station. I have a station where I make blankets. What is it called? Crochet blankets. And so I'll do each one for 20 minutes, you know, and then go take a walk and listen to music.
Nice, Mom. This is my mom, by the way, everyone. That's awesome, Mom. Thanks for the idea.
And try and feel my feelings more. I'm really bad at that. I just stuff them down, but trying to acknowledge how tough this is right now and that it's real.
Yeah. And it's okay that it's tough, right? Like, yeah, there doesn't have to be any judgment behind that.
No.
Yeah, I've just been taking things day by day and like knowing that emotions are going to come up. It's like, it's okay if they come up. It's fine. I'm not the only one on this planet right now that's going through that's going through this. And also I'm also spending a lot of time talking with my friends and my family. It's just like a little bit more, you know, it's like, oh, everyone's in the same boat. It's just nice to hear the people that are close to you, understand where you're coming from and allow you to feel the way that you feel.
Yes, it's so important. Human connection is a basic need. Like, I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand either. Our basic needs are like water and food and shelter and human connection. I mean, we're meant to be in community, right? And not having that and like literally being isolated can be very detrimental to our health.
Is there anyone else who wants to say a few words?
Yeah, I'll speak. Hi, Lindsay. You know, I've been in solo isolation and I, you know, have found it to be really interesting and introspective for me. But, you know, I do a lot of breath work, so I love hearing you guys talk about the science of it. I work with the spirituality side of it too. And it's just been incredible to connect with people virtually in that realm and be so helpful to not understand fully what you're creating sometimes too, and just to be with some kind of presence and just really understand that it is okay to have a shift of emotions within an hour or a minute. So I really appreciate the statement about humans being paradoxical.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. Totally. Thank you.
And I've worked with Vanessa, and I probably had my most powerful breathwork session with Vanessa when I was living in New York. And part of that included screaming into a pillow.
Nice.
That
Cool.
was an insane release. Breathwork, breathing for all this grief, all the chest stuff we're experiencing right now.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that earlier. I forgot. Thank you for reminding me. A lot of people don't realize that they're not supposed to breathe into their chest. There's a lot of like secondary breathing muscles like all through the neck and the chest. And when they're overworked, it can lead to poor posture, which can lead to a multitude of things. But if you find yourself feeling really stressed out and you're breathing into your chest, try as much as you can to put your hand on your belly and really focus on breathing into your nose all the way down into your belly so you can actually relax, because breathing into your chest is just going to perpetuate the fight or flight feelings. And we're not meant to breathe into our chests. We're meant to breathe into our bellies. So just
That's so
food for thought.
You know, we're taught to eat food, we're taught to drink water, and we're not taught how to breathe.
Yep. I mean, literally people come into our office all the time, just being like, they don't even like, we're like, okay, try and breathe into your belly. They're like, I literally don't even know how to do that. What is that supposed to feel like? I'm like, yes, great question. This is going to be so much fun, you know? Because I mean, I've been there too. Like, I was like, what do you mean breathe into my belly? What is that supposed to feel like? And then when I did, I was like, oh my God, this is what it's supposed to feel like when I breathe. Like, it was so novel to me, and it changed my life. I mean, it drastically changed my life.
Okay, well, if you don't have any more questions, I want to thank Holly and Lauren for being here today. Hold on, I see a question coming up. Is there one? Oh, yes, someone saying thank you to you guys. But yeah, thank you. This was really informative. I have recorded this. It's going to be on our YouTube and Facebook links. I will email everybody tomorrow with the links, and you can share it with your network. We'll be doing a similar, so we got a series of like health-based talks with healers, and it's every Thursday at 2:00. And next week we have one. I actually see Stefania's in the room watching, so she's going to be leading that conversation next week on human design.
Cool.
To get more information on that, if you sign up for our newsletter, I'll put the website up in the chat also, and you can sign up for our newsletters. We do multiple events all the time, and yeah, we'd love to have you hear more and, you know, participate. So yeah, thank you everybody, and I will see you all soon.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.